This is the new media grip with Tonic Studios. And the media grip was inspired by having something grip on to your glass media mat. It is the same surface or substrate, if you will, as the back of your nonstick craft mat that comes with the media mat. This shiny kind of grippy silicone, if you will, was the inspiration for the media grip. And the media grip is really designed to grip. It's not designed necessarily to be a silicone mat because it is very grippy, right? Very clingy. It is washable and reusable indefinitely. You can heat on it, which is great. And I'm going to demo a lot of different things of how I like to use this. It's very simple in its properties. It measures 10.5 by 12. When you take it out of the box, and luckily I had another one that was in the box, that's good. We're just going to take that and grab the end of this. We're going to keep twisting that, right? So you're going to grab the end of it, keep twisting so it doesn't grip on the box because it's going to want to grip into the window. Twist and take this out of the box, right? Once you do, you're going to see that it is shiny and wrinkly. Again, a creative fruit roll-up, but don't panic about that. It has a release sheet that it comes on. Now, you could store it on this sheet. It's just a piece of a very thin, very flimsy acetate, but I don't really like that. I actually like to store it a different way, and I'll talk about that. So the purpose, the inspiration for Media Grip is really about utilizing it with your papers, right? Using it with your cards, your tags as a way to keep things from sliding around. And again, in the past, I think back in 2019 when Sticky Grid came out, I was using it to hold down tags to stencil. I was using it in my stamp platform. I know that like in 2020, I was using shelf liner to hold my ink pads because I've always wanted that extra little hand. That's something that's just going to just kind of hold on to things when I'm working as a maker. The nice thing about this, of course, is that it has some great perks that I think if you think about its use, you will hopefully understand that as well. Right now, I will say my media grip count, I've cut 3 sheets. So I've cut 3 pieces just to kind of get all the different sizes that I want to work with. You can see that it's fairly thin. There you go. Fairly thin, probably about the thickness of, I don't know, maybe some cardstock, because I wanted it thin for a reason. Now I store it for many different things. Again, I have it for tags, cards, ink pads. So I have my distress and archival, multiple ink pads, maybe for stencils, and then just random sizes because ultimately when you cut it, I don't have a plan or a template, but you might get some extra pieces and you can always use them for different things. You know, maybe just to grip down your ruler when you're measuring something or maybe whatever it is. And I'll even use it for collage. And I'll talk about storage in just a minute. For cutting it, it is important to note that when you cut this, it is going to want to grip onto your trimmer. Now, because this measures 10.5 by 12, I need to work on a larger cutter, but you can cut with different things. You can cut it with scissors, you can use a straight edge and a craft knife, you can maybe use a rotary cutter, okay? But if you're going to cut it, so the first thing I would say, and I don't mind cutting another piece, is let's say I wanted a piece for my card, because that's why I have all the different sizes. If you work on a standard card size, right, or tag for a blank, you're going to want to cut your grip just slightly smaller than your card, and I'll show you why. So for example, on this, an A2 is 4 1/4 by 5.5. So I'm going to take the grip and I'm going to bring it into my trimmer. Now again, it's going to want to grip on everything. So just get it to where a piece comes out the other side, and then you can make it work, right? You can slide it through your trimmer. If you try to keep it off of this little raised part, it does allow it to slide a little bit easier, okay? So if it's just slightly under 5.5, okay, I can place it down on my trimmer and it will grip to the base, right? So you can use your grid as a measuring guide versus like you don't have to rest it up against here like cardstock. You can just use the grid, but you want to make sure that it's pressed down, it's flush. You don't have any bubble or ripple in this before you cut it. Otherwise your cut would be uneven, right? And then you just cut it, right? It is designed to cut. That's the important part. I wanted something that you could cut apart. Then you're going to see, you see if you have this Tonic trimmer, it's gripping to this piece. So it's like you can't just lift it out like a piece of paper. So you're going to press it down just to get it to release, and then I'll turn it, and I can cut two more card pieces, because sometimes I'm working on different card panels, and you're going to see there's really just a lot of ideas of what we can do with the grip. Okay, place that down. Just habit to kind of put it up front, but really what I'm doing is looking at this grid line. And if it's not totally perfect, don't panic, don't freak your freak. If you have it and you're worrying about, oh my gosh, I've done this and I've cut it a little crooked, it's okay. You have a piece of it. It's going to be a tool that you're going to find, honestly, a lot of great uses that if you're going to work. The acetate, it's already bubbly on the acetate. So if you try to leave it, there was a question, what if you cut it on the acetate? The acetate is bubbly, so if you cut it, it's going to give you an uneven cut because the sheet isn't flat. So that's why I take it off of that. Could you put it on another piece of acetate and cut them simultaneously? I'm sure you could, right? But this is really what I like to do, is just take your time, because once you cut it, you don't have to you don't have to cut it again. You just have it cut and it's going to be a tool. But here's what you need to understand about the grip. Its purpose, as you see, is to grip. Okay? It's not an adhesive. It's not something that's going to wear out. It's designed to grip. So if you leave it open out in the air, if you leave it on a shelf, if you leave it on your table, even if you leave it out for a couple of hours, any dust, anything in the air is going to want to grip itself to it. Okay? So for storage, when I'm not using it, I needed to come up with a way that I could store it. And I wanted something that was going to be easy access. I didn't want something where I had to worry about putting it back on its acetate sheet, blah, 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 file system. So these pockets, right? I love a good storage pocket. So these are pockets from Simon Says. They're cardstock pockets. They're big. So think of it kind of like a report cover, but thicker, right? This is a pocket that's designed to hold cardstock. Now, ideally, a pocket is not going to work for this, okay? Because if you can't slide it in and out of the pocket, it's going to grip just like it wants to grip the box itself. So what I did is took a pocket, and it has this like little welded thing, because I'm just sharing ideas, because you might come up with an idea that works for you. A size, a storage thing, maybe you have some folders, whatever it was. Yeah, someone said like color forms. Exactly. Almost exactly like that. So here, except color forms are not heat stable. So I know that as a kid, and this is heat stable. So I just went in with a cutter and I just cut both of the, let's just say the welds on both sides. So now this opens like this, right? And the reason I did it this way versus a folder, because you might think, well, hold on, I would rather open like a book. Okay, you can do that, but hear me out first. If you have something open like a book, and let's say you put in a piece of grip and it wasn't totally clean, if you will, it wasn't grippy, and you wanted to put this maybe in a bookcase or in a divider, in a cardstock drawer or something, that media grip could essentially fall out of the bottom, right? So that's why for me, it worked great to cut both sides and leave the bottom, because if for whatever reason this slides down, it's going to hold it when I take it, because I'll keep this in with my other cardstocks, right, in a shelf, so I can just pick this whole thing out, and that's why I choose to leave that on the bottom. That was my choice. But again, whatever's going to work for you, do that. Okay, because I have different pieces, right, different pieces that are going to be cut. You'll see that this is sticking to the shiny part, but this part that's frosted, it's not really gripping to it like it does here. So when I'm done using it, I'll lay the clear side down first, so this can lay down, and then that's how it can close, right? To mark it, just so I knew what was what, because as I mentioned, I've been working with media grip for a long time. I have, and it's weird when I go to demo. I mean, I've been using this, well, this whole year. And because the product's just been getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And it's very awkward, I'm not gonna lie. When I come and do a live or a demo, even with Foundry Wax, which we did, I used this under my paper for Foundry Wax. So when I was doing this, I didn't have to worry my paper sliding. It was very awkward. So that's why I've marked it. I just took a Sharpie and wrote on the outside of this, because you can't write with a Sharpie on this. It won't stick, it'll come right off. And there's no reason to write on this, because you're going to want to clean it and all of that. So why not just write on the outside of this with with the Sharpie. So for example, my card piece, right? This way, when I'm done with it and I clean it, I can place this back, lay this down, and close it up. So let's just talk about its use, right? And how we how we can use it and why would you want multiple pieces, because that's really the talk that I had to have with Tonic, right? When I said, look, this is designed to cut apart. They're like, well, you don't have to, you can leave it as a mat. And in fact, when you see all of their media and marketing, they're going to show it to you as a full sheet. And I don't like it as a full sheet. And I want to show you why I don't like that. But if you like it and it works for you, then that's perfect. That's how it needs to be. Let's just say though, you were working with this and it gets gunky. So before I get into it, how do you clean it? It's very simple. You just clean it with water. Could it be soap and water? Sure. Could you use any detergent? Sure. Could you try stamp cleaner on it? Sure. You could do all of those. But for this, all you do is you just put it in water. It could be, again, soap and water, whatever you think you need. I just use regular water. And it doesn't matter if it's warm or cool. Obviously, warmer water is just going to make things quicker. And that's going to take off any dust. I'll talk about collage medium. I'll talk about different inks. It's very easy to clean off. Then to dry it, I prefer to just, you could let it air dry, but I just prefer to go in with a paper towel, right? Place that down, just absorb the water from that, and we're back in business, right? So if your media grip loses its grip because maybe you have glitter or embossing powder, I see a lot of people talk about cat fur, whatever, it's super simple to just essentially rinse it off. It doesn't have to be a pan of water. It can go right under your sink, your faucet, just to clean it off, because it is something that as a maker, I just want to be able to use again and again and not worry about like, oh, I shouldn't use it with this. Oh, I can't use it with this. That was my hesitation with everything else. My hesitation with everything else was when I was working with sticky grid, I couldn't heat on it. I couldn't, like if I was stamping something, I couldn't use my heat tool because the sticky grid, the adhesive would heat up and get on the back of my cardstock, right? That was a problem. If I was using a sticky grid for a lot of other things, the other challenge was if you got ink on sticky grid, then the sticky grid was gone. Sticky grid is great for what it was designed with Sizzix, which is for die cutting. It's a great die cut machine. And I thought, you know, can I put this in my machine and use it instead of sticky grid? No, not really, because it destroyed this. You know, the pressure of the die just smashed it. So sticky grid is for die cutting, which is what it's designed for. And media grip, well, for me, that's kind of everything else. So let's just talk about it. Why did I want it this specific thickness? Because like I said, there are other mats out there. I didn't invent a silicone mat. I didn't invent this type of adhesive. It's just something that was on the back of this that I felt that my other silicone mats, your standard silicone mats, yeah, they're silicone. And yeah, you could say that they kind of grip to the surface. There's a little water down there. But they don't really grip. Not the way that I need it, not the way that this thing grips. That's the whole thing. Like, because sometimes, you know, if you have a media mat and you go to pull off this craft mat, sometimes you think like, oh my gosh, like what is it stuck down with? That's how grippy the back of this was. That's why I said to Tonic, like, hey, is that really cool that you could use that's whatever this is, can you just give me this? And they're like, well, no, because it's supposed to really be attached to something. I'm like, well, attach it to itself because I want it to be double-sided, right? That to me is the easiest. So
that was a fun conversation to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, well, I don't want anything on it. I just want two sides of this. They're like,
what?
They're like, but it's just the backing. I'm like, but can it be the backing of another of itself? So there is something inside it, obviously, to hold it because we don't want it to like trash apart. But like I said, you might find some other things. So I'm just going to talk about this and I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. So first thing is a card or a tag, and we'll talk about its size. Now, if you had a piece that was big, I'm just going to take a scrap piece of this, okay, of media grip. If you were working on a silicone mat, let's just say, and we wanted to do inking, okay, because, well, that's the first thing we'll talk about is inking, whether we're going to work with distress ink or distress oxide, because this way you'll understand why I cut those to card size. So if I'm going to take some inks out, and maybe I'll just work with a little bit of brown, that will be fine, because, you know, I do like a good brown, and maybe I'll even use a little bit of green, probably not too much, but, you know, I'll work with those colors. Okay. Actually, I'm going to even grab an oxide. Let's do a little Savage Patina. That'll be good. And we'll do some saltwater taffy. Okay. All right. So if you're working with your ink pads and you're doing inking, okay, that's a pretty easy thing for a grip. And that's why I have some for ink pads. Now, I have one for distress and one for archival. Why? Well, because the pads are two different shapes. This is a square. Archival is a rectangle. Could you essentially use the rectangle for a square? Absolutely, right? If your OCD will let you do that, then you do it, right? But if you just wanted, let's just say, a multiple ink pad landing strip, well, then you can cut one that size too. It's completely up to you. I just find that if I'm going to do, let's just say I'm going to do all vintage inking, okay? I could take this, and it could be cut exactly to size if you want, but I just like the fact that I can just drop it down. I don't have to, like, you know, absolutely square it up. So for me, I just like it more of a landing strip. And this, of course, is going to hold my ink pad. So if I'm inking this up, it's just going to grip my ink pad. That's it. Okay. So if I'm using one ink pad, that's pretty much why I want the square. But if I plan on doing different inking, I like the fact that I could have a strip, because essentially I could have multiple ink pads on there, whatever size I want. And then of course, these are going to grip all those ink pads. Totally up to you how you want to use it as a maker. Okay. But now we need to talk about the paper itself, because a lot of people work on a silicone mat, and that's fine. If you like that, then that's really what you should do. For me, I don't like the way you ink blend on a silicone mat. And what that means is the drag. I don't like to ink blend here, and I don't like to ink blend here. I like to ink blend on glass for a reason. That's why I wanted to do the media mat with Tonic in the first place, was really about blending. If you take a blending tool and you work from the edge of paper on a silicone mat or a craft mat, you're going to get drag. Without a doubt, it doesn't matter if you have a domed foam, a flat foam, a brush, you're going to get some drag, because that material wants to hold on to that ink, that foam, whatever that is. That's your drag that you're getting. Same thing if you were to do that over here. You would get some sense of drag, right? You definitely get more drag on this because it's grippy. This is not grippy. It's only grippy on the back. But you still see that the fabric that's in this is what's grabbing onto the ink. And that's why I like to work specifically on glass. And so to avoid that, or to help that, I have pieces cut smaller than the substrates I typically work with. Now, you might not work with an A2 card front. You might work with slimline. You might do a lot of different ones. So that's why it's great that you have different ones. Why do I have two of the same card panels? Because sometimes I'm working on two card panels simultaneously. Maybe one is inking and one is using it with texture paste, which I'll talk about. So that's why I wanted to have two pieces. That just works for me. The number 8 tags, the number 5 tags, yeah, why did I notch the corners? Do you have to? Well, I do, because I'm going to do some inking. So let me just explain the card and the tag inking. If I take a piece for the card, first thing to remember is this. If you've done any inking on this at all, okay, which I'm going to, you want to make sure that it's clean before you put your grip down, because if you don't have a clean surface for your grip can't grip. And all I use to clean would just be some water. Yeah, it could be sanitizer, alcohol, but just water. That's going to clean off any ink. There's nothing there, okay, because I haven't inked on it yet. But this way I can place this down. If you use your media mat, like for the grid or the line, you could do that. That's fine to kind of line it up if you want to. But I love the ability to take paper, right? Any kind of paper. It could be watercolor or whatever. But I could place this down over that because I've cut it slightly smaller than my A2. And now this just grips it. So when I say grip it, it's not adhesive. It's not designed to stick it down, okay? It's just meant to grip. So think of it as just that extra hand, that hand that maybe you're using washi tape or maybe you're using whatever. Now once you place this down, right? Let me just line it up to my grid, right? I don't have to use so much pressure with my hand. Now I can just do my inking right from my glass, right? And this allows me to really control the pressure because I think a lot of times, and people use magnets, people use washi tape, they use all sorts of different things to hold things down, but sometimes you're pressing down so hard that you have a tendency to press down equal pressure with both hands, and this just gives me that little bit of grip. Now, for the other side, well, you just pick this up and flip it over, right? If that's your comfortable ink area, right? that's what we're going to do. But because I'm inking from the glass, I'm not wasting any of my ink. My ink remains on the tool and sliding right off of the glass, and that's what's going to allow that. Could you add more ink? Yes. Could you continue to build intensity? Yes. You can just, it's just nice to have a grip. Really, I mean, all puns aside, that's the whole purpose of this, is that extra little whatever for whatever it is that you needed it to be. And you can see the paper does slide because it's not sticky. It's not going to put anything on the back of the card. It's just that when you press down on it, it gives you that grip. That's it, right? So can you do it without holding it? No, you can't do it without holding it because it's not a sticky mat. It's just to give you a little grip. I mean, you could use this stuff, again, it's kind of like, you know, people use shelf liner to open jars and stuff. It's that same kind of idea, but as you can see, it's incredibly thin because for this particular thing, that's why I wanted it so thin. I wanted it as thin as we possibly could do it, is because for ink blending, if you cut a silicone mat or something else that's going to lift your cardstock, you're going to be challenged from that blending from the glass, right? That's the whole idea of that. Okay, so let me just go in and clean this up and just show you like on a tag, because again, if you had this, right, and you tried to always work with something super sticky, again, that's what I was doing with sticky grid, that every single time that you used it, you could potentially get something on the back of it. Okay, a number 8 tag. I love the fact that I could ink a tag because it's super thin. If it's too thick, you're going to have an issue with it catching the edge of your ink tool, right? So if I place this down, and yeah, I suppose I could punch a hole in there if I wanted to. If I place this down, the great thing about this, let's do some salvage patina as well, okay? I'm gonna ink up a little bit here. I just place down, that's what's gonna give me my grip, right? Because I did hold it down, but I don't need to hold it down with as much pressure, okay? But again, I have the ability to go right from the edge. If this grip was thicker, then I wouldn't be able to have such a smooth transition from my glass surface, right, to this. That's the thing. If I don't make that transition, if it's too high, this is going to catch. You know that, like if you've ever tried to ink, say, chipboard or something, right? And you go in like that and the edge of the chipboard is either chewing into your blending foam or grabbing it. That's a nice thing about the Media Grip. It's one of those kind of duh products, really, where it's not a product that it's like, is it going to be totally life-changing? Well, maybe not. See, now I think I'm gonna cut off those bottom corners next time because I just flipped my tag over and I'm like, I don't really want those there. But I like the fact that, like I said, creative convenience. You know, sometimes it's just about designing something where as a maker, you're like, wouldn't it be cool if there was just something that would help me like just grip onto things? You know, it'd be nice that if I was able to place something down, you know, I didn't mind the shelf liner, but even the shelf liner, it was like almost a little pillow. So I found that when I was using my blending tool to ink my tool, the pad was always kind of squishy, and that just bothered me. It may not bother you. You may be fine with shelf liner. You may look at all this and be like, well, this is a total waste. Great, that's fine. But for me, I absolutely love the fact that I can just go in and use something like this just to give me that extra little leverage for inking, whether it's going to be a card, a tag, anything. And then if I was doing a background, right, I could still spray with my water and I could still use a heat tool, right? I love the fact that I can use a heat tool, and because this is completely heat resistant, heat stable, I don't have to worry about the back of my tag or cardstock becoming stuck to the bottom, right? So then I can take that water, blot that up, simple, done, just simple blending, okay? So that's the early basic idea for Media Grip, but it has other purposes, it has other functions, so I just want to share that with you as far as what other things we can do. Do you have to clean it every time? I don't, but you could. I mean, if you wanted to just make sure that the next time you went to use it, it was ready to go, then I guess you could get in the habit that before you put it back in the sleeve, you just rinse it off just to make sure, but that's totally fine, right? I just like to Again, place it down. There's no right or wrong side to the grip. Make sure, see that little fold? Make sure that it's not folded. I mean, it won't hold a crease because it's just silicone. It won't hold a crease, but yeah, it's just nice because now it's protected from dirt, dust, whatever it is you're going to be using it for. Okay, I'm going to take my little distress pad, all right, single one. You can place that down here, and good to go. And yeah, someone said I like that it protects the back of the product. It kind of does because it keeps it from slipping, and that's what I'm going to share. Just some other ideas of like, okay, well, how else to use it besides just inking? Because it could just be inking. I'm going to talk about texture, collage, whatever. But before I get into that, let's just talk about basic stamping, okay? Basic stamping meaning if you have some type of stamping tool, right? For a stamping tool, I happen to love the platforms, right? So when I work with that, I have a piece cut for each of my stamp platforms now, right? I have a piece that just lives there. It's not something I take out. Could it be something you take out? Yes. Could it be something that you go in and use? Yes, right? So I like the fact that once it's in here, it's already cut, it's already done. I don't have to worry about finding a piece to work with, whatever. So I've already cut one for each of the mats. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. One, if you go in and use any type of stamping tool, right? You know that even if you take your paper and you want to place it or position it into a piece, right? And you use your magnets, right, as we would, and you do your stamping, any kind of stamping, right? You're going to go in and do that. But even if you square it up, you know that sometimes your cardstock does that like little tiny shift, right? Especially if you're using clear stamps because they're a little stickier. That tiny little shift, and then you go to do double stamping and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, the nice thing about the grip is that it's not, the magnets are holding the paper, but this is also going to keep that paper, even without the magnets, from sliding anywhere. Even that little bit, okay? That to me is what I like about having this. The other thing that I like about this is, let's say I had a card. Now I will tell you on these magnets, I'm going to tape mine now. I never did that little trick, but see, it wants to grip the magnets. So I need something to pick the magnets up. But let's say I wanted to take a card and I want to stamp a background, right? Maybe I have just a fun background that I want to go over a card, a tag. Maybe it's just a smaller card. Let me find something almost like, let's say ATC size or whatever that is, okay? Now, most of the time, right, I'm in the habit of always cornering up that piece of paper, but if I want to use a background stamp, I'm kind of stuck with that background corner. Now I can just place this down. It's going to have that grip. I don't need any magnets because my paper is not going to turn anywhere. I can take a background stamp. Let's see, I'll just position it like that. Make sure it's rubber, place that. Pick that up, and then I can do a little stamping, do a little stampy stamp, okay? So in this instance, I use it instead of sticky grid. So now for me, sticky grid, which I love sticky grid now is back to just die cutting, which is what it was intended for. And I liked it at the time, but like I said, having that adhesive on the back of my paper, or if I was doing any blending, or the fact that I was really going through a lot of sticky grid, it just wasn't meant for creative inking things. Sticky grid was always meant for die cutting. So now it can just go back to that, which is nice because it'll last a lot longer than the way I was using it, okay? So I'm just gonna ink that up, my lid on it, okay? Place that down, and now I can just do my stamping over the whole thing. Whether this was distress, whether this was archival, whatever that is, and now my paper is just there, even around that. Okay, just nice because I get an edge to edge. I can do a little blending because I love to do a good smudge, right? A good smudge with distress. That's why I did distress. So I'm just following that wood grain pattern because that just makes it even quicker, right? To create my background, because I'm able to smudge the distress because I did stamp in distress ink versus archival. But yeah, nice quick background. So the ink that's here, you could take this off if you wanted to. There's a little hair there. Come on. But you can also just spray it with water, right? Because it's already gripped down there, you can still wipe this off, okay? But I'm not sure about like those microfiber things. You might, I'd probably just stick with paper towel because you don't want to get anything on it, but I just don't like that. It probably would just grip on there. I can't even touch those anyway. Again, no adhesive. So this and works on either side. So if you got this really gunky, you had archival on it, you can use archival cleaner to clean it. You can use alcohol to clean this, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Will alcohol ink still stain this? Alcohol inks will still permeate and stain this, but not foundry wax, not alloys, not collage medium, and I'll talk about those in just a minute as well, okay? So background stamps are just general stamping that maybe you don't want to use magnets on, or even if you are going to use your magnets and you want to just get that extra little sense of, I guess, just security in your image not shifting, that's nice. I mean, let's just say you had a big stamp that wasn't necessarily a background, right? But it was going to go on a card and you're just going to stamp the border. So here we could still use magnets, great. But this is also just going to ensure that because we can't put one in this corner, right, because you're going to go down the side, that's still going to allow me to position it somewhere else on my stamping tool, and it's going to grip the paper, okay? That to me is the best part of the Media Grip. It's just meant to grip. That's it. But sometimes, as I said at the beginning, it's just the simplicity of a product that makes it so versatile. So let's talk about die cutting, right? Because we're going to get into stencils, we're going to get into paste, we're going to get into all the different uses, because sometimes you just look at this stuff and you think, okay, that's just ridiculous, I don't need it. And maybe you're still thinking that, and I'm okay with that. But for me, I just love it. And honestly, I don't put any of mine back until I'm done with all of it, but just for the sake of the demo, I will. So on this little guy, let's say that I was going to do some multiple die cutting. You've seen this trick before. My friend Joy taught this to me years ago, and I was like blown away, and I love that. And that is using any type of stamp that you might have a coordinating die. Now, I don't do a lot of stamps and coordinating dies because stamps are done with Stampers Anonymous, dies are done with Sizzix. There have been some collaborations in the past, but no future collabs like that. So, you know, they are what they are. The ones that are available are still available. But I know many companies still do stamps and dies, and so learning this little trick is super helpful. And the idea behind it is that you take your favorite paper, right? In this case, this is distressed watercolor cardstock. You take your framelits, whatever framelits you want, right, that you have, and you're going to die cut those shapes, right? Then you're going to go in and die cut a bazillion of those, right? Or not a bazillion, but one piece you're going to keep as a template. The others you can let go, but you're going to keep one negative. And then you have all your pieces before you've done your stamping. I've got those for butterflies. I've also done it for tickets because, hey, who doesn't love to do their own tickets, right? Because you can do all your inking and whatever. But here's the cool part, that now you can take that template, you can put it in your stamping tool. You can still go in with your magnets and add your magnets to it. But what I like is, if I can get this magnet off, there we go. I like the fact that this is going to grip it down even more. Now, again, I showed this with sticky grid, but the challenge was getting the pieces out because they wanted to stick to the sticky grid. So what this means is any of your shapes that you have that you've already die cut, you can now place them just into that little, well, first things first. Let's get on it, Holtz. Let's figure out the demo from start to finish. What you need to do next is take the stamps, so I'm totally getting ahead of myself, that line up with these cuts. The rubber, see that raised rubber, will fit into that cutout like a cookie cutter, right? It just drops in. So you're going to take those stamps, which I already know these are the stamps, and you're going to drop them into that opening. So your template, you can keep your template really indefinitely, and you want to make sure that those stamps are kind of locked in. Then close that picks them up, okay? Now you can go in with your papers and they just pop into those pieces, those little areas that you have created, right? Kind of reminds me of that toy as a kid where you have to put the right shapes in the right, that would be me. Okay, so it just kind of sits in there like a puzzle, right? That's really that simple. Then you take your ink pad, you're going to ink this up, right? Normally I would have like the sleeve under there, but for this it'll be fine. I just want to hold it. I don't like that bangity bang noise. Tapping it. This is archival, but you could use archival, distress, whatever inking you want. Doesn't matter. Whatever your stamp ink of choice is, you're going to use that. Then you're just going to place that down, press down, good impression. Now, if you miss a spot, now you have the ability to go back in and do that. But the great thing is now you can take these out. So the way I take them out, I don't know, they probably still make this, but this is old school, right? Remember Quick Cuts, right? It's like that quick, it's like this weird little sticky, it's stickier than poster putty, but it's that same idea. I'm sure that somebody still makes that tool. But that's what I use to just go in and touch it. And now I can pick these things out, right? Pick them up and just do it again, right? Put the next piece in, the next piece in, next piece in, and now your pieces are just perfectly aligned every time. So yeah, when Joyce showed me that, I was like, what? Right? That was a great way to do this because I didn't have to line up my dies every time. It was just the same template. But where the media grip comes in is just making it easier to get the pieces out, right? Because I don't have to worry about any adhesive sprays or anything like that. I just love the idea of having that grip because all your pieces, even when you put your pieces in, right, even though it's a puzzle, now I don't have to worry about those sliding underneath at some point, right, or even shifting within there because just that little grip underneath makes all the difference, right? So I take that piece, put that in, take that piece, put that in, you just kind of pop it in, there we go, ink it up, and do it again. So you could just kind of keep going and going. There's just a lot of uses for media grip, and the fact that this just lives in here, I don't even have to worry about another sleeve because when this is closed and it goes in its little pouch or pocket, that's going to keep dust out of it. But if dust gets on it, just take it out, rinse it, put it back in. So, and again, it's not changing the thickness of anything, right? It's not a thick substrate to change the pressure of anything, whether that would be, you know, stamping or anything like that. Because other stamping tools, you know, there's different pressures that you have to worry about or different thicknesses, and that's fine. I like the fact that this doesn't change it. I wanted it to be super thin for a reason. That's the grip. It's a simple thing. Get that little putty going and pick those pieces up. Come on, there we go. Simple, right? And then stamps, when I'm done with them, yeah, you could clean them off, use any kind of cleaner. Just gonna use a cloth for that. Place them down and you're good to go, right? And then that template is that template. And if you got rid of it, you just could cut another one. It doesn't really matter because it depends on, you know, where you want to place them anyway. So let's talk about when you're working with die cuts. When you work with die cuts, right? Let me just take this off, right? You see how you're going to get little paper pieces? That's from the die cut itself. So this again is where you have to remember that you're going to want to just keep it clean if you can. And if a paper towel and water is not going to, I mean, I know it will, but if that just didn't work for you, you could use a lint roller. That's another thing. If you have just like, you can find those at the dollar store even. A little lint roller will take off any little paper pieces off of that as well. If you didn't want to use a paper towel and water, that's going to work just fine too. All right. So that was just talking about, get the magnets in check. That was just talking about how you use media grip with stamping tools, whether you're going to use it with die cuts or whether you're going to use it with background stamps, right? On a thing like that, absolutely perfect. So far, so good, Mario?
Okay.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Glad that our camera has remained on.
Automatically switching.
Well, you know, there's always going to be that. I guess, you know,
We needed a little bit of fun.
Look.
We needed to get a grip.
Well, you definitely had the right idea of just resetting it. So, okay. Pick up these pieces, and now we're going to talk about like how does that work, say, in a mixed media realm, right? Because maybe you don't do die cutting, maybe you don't do stamping. Again, fine. But here are some things that I like to use it for. So I'm going to clean off that, and we're just going to talk about something as simple as stenciling, right? So if I'm going to stencil something, let me find my big piece. I have one just for stencils because the stencils that I do are, well, they're like a tag size, right? Big, like that. So that's why I have something bigger. So I wanted something that would work with the stencil. But here's some things that you're going to want to understand about that, okay? So let's go. Take that, let's see, I'll take that. I don't mind taking that little alpha one, that's good. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So a couple of basic things. First, we'll just talk about inking, if you will. We'll take a piece of cardstock. This is watercolor cardstock, so you can use something smoother textured. I mean, yes, the smooth side is going to work, but also on watercolor paper, the textured side is going to work. It's just about a grip, okay? It's not, you're still not worrying about adhesive. That's what you have to kind of remember. The benefit of this is, let's just say we were going to stencil something that we wanted to ink. If I was going to be inking something, so I'll just take some brushes, and I wanted to ink some colors, I still like to be able to see what I'm doing when I'm inking. So if I know that I'm going to ink with a stencil, there are a couple of options. One, I can turn the grip this way, right? Just because of how I cut this, that I know it's still going to work with my card front. And now I can still position my stencil to flip this up. So at this point, all it's doing is it's gripping my paper. Okay, so I'll show you that way before I show you the other way, because I don't want you to get too confused, okay? Because sometimes you look at this and you're like, this is silly, right? I like to just tape my stencil with a piece of masking tape, because if I'm doing ink, I want to be able to see what's going on and go right back. But now my paper, I don't have to worry about my paper moving when I do that, because it's gripped down, okay? Could I have just used the card front piece too? Yes, you could have just used that too, because at this point, all it's gripping is the card. But I'll show you why I have one for stencils. All right, I'll take brushes. Let me take just gonna do a single ink grip. That's why I told you. That's why I would just leave all my grips out until I was done, and then I would just wash them all, because it's just easier. Could you put your ink here? Yes, you could do that just as well. Let's take, I'll just do brown for the sake of brown. Take a blending brush. Okay, I like the fact that, see now, like it's just gonna hold on to the ink pad. But I can go in, do a little inking. Now, I still hold the stencil. I mean, even if you have a grip, or if you have tape, or if you have magnets, what are you going to do with that hand anyway? I still hold on to that. So, you know, do you have to? Well, you have to for the sake of the stencil anyway. But I like that I can just lift that up. Okay, cool. Go back down with the brush. I like that if I wanted a little concentration, I'm just going to slide this up so it really creates that little compact area of color. All right, so then I can just create that darker and then slide this back. So now I have the bristles just to create a much softer fade of a blend. All right, so I just like the fact that I do have the ability to go back and forth on that, and when I'm happy with it, I'm happy with it, okay? So that's if you're gonna use any type of blending brush or blending tool with your stencil. I like to still tape this, because this will not tape to the grip, okay? You can't tape the stencil to the grip. It's meant to be a non-stick substrate. You'll see that when we get into other mixed media things, right? But what if we wanted to use paste or collage or any of that? Place that down. And let's say I want to just do a stencil through here. The nice thing is if I'm taking a piece of, well, let's just do some craft, because we could do that too. Right? I like that if I didn't really care about going back in, maybe I was just going to do some quick inking, right? I like that I can place a stencil down and still do my inking, and this is going to grip the stencil. So maybe you're going to work on something, you're working on, you know, ATCs, or you're just doing a bunch of collage pieces, and you don't have to worry about taping things down. As long as any type of stencil, and you may not have these stencils, you may have other stencils that are bigger. Well, then you're probably going to want to have a bigger piece of grip to grip more of those square or rectangular stencils, right? I see people talking about this tape. It's just black masking tape. I bought it at Amazon because, well, I like black masking tape. That's all. But if you're doing any kind of background, any place that your stencil could actually touch the grip is going to give it stability, and that includes things for texture, right? So let's say I wanted to do some texture paste, right? Maybe it's going to be grit paste, collage paste, whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. And I'll even show you collage medium, because it's great for kind of a gluing surface too, right? Just going to peel back some press and seal, take some paste, pick this up, place this, because I'm still going to hold this, right? But now I just need to hold it with my finger, because that little grip, it just adds a grip. That's all it does. Gosh, It's almost like I'm trying to oversell it. I'm not even doing that. I'm just trying to show that's all it's for. It doesn't do much else. And like Mario said, the conversation with Tonic was quite interesting. It's like, but what does it do? Well, it doesn't really do anything other than just give you that extra little grip for, you know, something like this. Because if you're even doing stenciling where you're dragging a palette knife, if we were just doing this on glass, and I'll show you, your stencil is going to want to, it's going to want to have a little slide, right? That's it. And now it just makes it easy that I can lift that off and we're good to go. So without the grip, here, let me wipe that off. A little bit of water. Okay. If we were doing this just on another piece of card, right? So even if I'm doing this, it's going to stay, but see, like, you just get that little movement for both the paper and that, right? Have you ever gone in with a palette knife and you're just going to do that, but see how you just got that little, it's just that little movement. And then each time you pick this up, your card just has that little slide. That's the benefit of the grip, where I felt that as a maker, I just wish things would stay put when I'm working with it. That's what it was. I just wish that things would stay put as I'm using it, whether it was paste or whether it was even glue. I'll show you that, right?
But that's fine. It does what it's supposed to do. It's just one.
That's a beauty. And you could find other things. I know that we are a culture of trying to find replacements for things that exist, even if sometimes those replacements cost more. Sometimes people are just out to kind of debunk what's in the craft market, and that's fine. You might find something that works perfectly.
Here's what I did.
What's that?
That's my cut. You know.
Okay. Oh.
It holds my phone.
There you go.
That's right.
That's what you use probably just when you're working with your iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you
Holds
go.
it right on my chair.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's
see?
perfect.
It's a
Yep.
gripper.
It's a gripper.
I got a grip.
You do. So if you're doing collage, that could be another thing. I'll take the stencil piece just because it's already here. Maybe it's paper dolls. Maybe it's ephemera. Maybe whatever it is. And maybe it's a collage brush. Maybe it's a paintbrush, right? Have you ever done collage on something that you just wanted it to stay put, right? Could I work on here? Yes, and I'll show you the difference. Let's get some pieces of ephemera. And I know, Mario, they love your clever idea.
It's perfect.
All right. It's just creative convenience. That's what I said yesterday, and I'm sticking with that. That's what I think of this stuff is. It's just a place that allows me to hold things that I normally couldn't. So if I'm working on this piece of paper, and let's say I was working on the craft sheet, because you've seen me glue on the craft sheet a lot, okay? I can take collage medium. Now, obviously I can put on the grip, but if I'm putting some on here, right? And we want this to be, you know, on the edge. Let's just go a little bit more on this, right? Place this down, okay? So did you see that? So just that little slip, like a lot of times when I'm just doing, and it's not that I'm not holding it, I'm holding it still with my fingers, but the pressure of collaging or brushing is still moving your paper. It's not a huge deal, right? So I'm not like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can see exactly why we need it. To me, that was just annoying because I kept putting collage medium or whatever on the back of everything because it was just slopping through. But now when I'm using collage medium, even if I'm just doing, you know, big pieces, small pieces, maybe I want to just do an edge of something, I have the ability to take this and I can paint right on the edge of that because nothing's going to stick to the media grip, right? Whether that's, permanently stick, I should say, right? So now I can place this down. I want to make sure that it holds on there. But see now, even if I just used a single finger, I don't have to worry about this moving. So I can take my brush and go in all those little areas. That's why I like to use it even for collage, because just that little wiggly bit it was annoying to me. And that's, as a maker, that's pretty much why I design many things. It's like, you know, that's kind of annoying. Wouldn't it be cool if we had this? And it just seems something simple, right? But to me, that's the easiest part when it comes to even collaging, is that I can use this as a sheet for glue. How does this come off? It's just going to come off with water, right? Whether it was wet or dry. So even after this dries, You can still put it in water. You might want to use a little soap. I didn't use soap, but you can just work that off. If you clean it off when it's still wet, it's easier to remove. If it dries, well, it just takes a little bit longer to take that off, but it won't stay on there permanently. Okay, you just go in a little bit of water, take a paper towel, and wipe that off. So see, even collage medium, just with a paper towel, completely clean. If it was dry, you would just put it in the water and it would just kind of slide off, if you will. Okay, so that's really the big difference. I mean, that to me is the benefit of Media Grip, that I can use it for all sorts of different things, from holding my ink pads to holding my stencils to holding my papers, my cards. And I certainly think that having the ability to have different pieces, right, that just means as a maker, it's going to be more convenient for exactly what I need to, well, get a grip on, right? So if I'm just doing inking, I'll take this out. That's why I have kind of all my ink pad ones in one little sleeve, if you will, because to me it's like, okay, now I've got them for all my ink pads. So maybe I'm just doing random inking and I don't care what it is, right? This I have, okay, if I'm just doing my cards, whether I'm going to be doing stamping or blending or whatever, and then I have one just for stencil because it's pretty much my biggest sheet. I think it was essentially what was left after one of the cuts, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good size. You know, I don't mind having some of it hanging over, right? And I like the fact on this, I'll just show you that, like when you put it in, because I told you the frosted side isn't really grippy, that like I can slide it into where I need it to go, and then this can just close over the top, right? Because ultimately that's the side, you can see, that's the side it's going to grip on, right? The shiny side versus the frosty side. But yeah, it's just nice. Again, nothing like, oh my gosh, that's completely revolutionary. But for me, it is creative convenience as a maker that I have Media Grip, not only for my ink blending, but also my background stamping, my die cuts, all of those little elementary things that as makers, I think we can really appreciate, right?